Labor pains cannot be ignored for very long. I saw in the news recently a 60-year-old couple, well, the wife, delivered a healthy baby after a spicy meal. She didn't even know she was pregnant, but the labor pains, which she thought was food poisoning or something like that, could not be ignored. A baby. A surprise, but a baby. When it came time for Thomas, our oldest, to be born, Deb experienced a bunch of those practice contractions on the evening of the 24th of April. Braxton Hicks, a name which will go down in infamy. She had a bunch of those Braxton Hicks contraction. That's what she told me. So I went to bed that night thinking I had another few days to procrastinate on getting the nursery put together. At 4 o'clock, I was rudely awakened. "I think I'm in labor," she whispered. I said, "No, you're not. It's just your imagination." And I went back to sleep. What seemed like only seconds later, I was awakened again, this time without any gentle whispering. Where did the romance go? It's just labor, for crying out loud. People do it all the time. On the way to the hospital, my dear bride began to explain what this labor thing is all about. And as happens sometimes with first babies, her labor was long, intense, and painful. She finally delivered Thomas at 5 in the evening on April 25th, almost a full day after her first contractions. Let's do a quick review of the Old Testament, shall we? It'll be fun. Right after the Exodus, God told Moses to tell the Israelites to build a tabernacle, which is a big tent, so that he could dwell in their midst without killing them. Glory is great for God, but it's bad for us because we're sinners. So God wanted to protect us from himself with this tent tabernacle. While he and Moses were up on Mount Sinai designing the thing, the Israelites grew impatient, so they made for themselves a golden calf, an idol, and they put it right where God wanted the tabernacle to be, and they got drunk and they worshiped it. Well, things got heated. Angry words were exchanged. Moses killed a few people, and God sent a plague against the whole lot of them. But they finally got things ironed out, and they built the tabernacle. When the people dedicated the tabernacle, the glory of the Lord moved from the top of Mount Sinai and down into the midst of the people into this tent, filling it with fire and smoke so thick that no one was able to go into it for a while. There was God in plain view, where everyone could see him. After the people were settled in the promised land, the time came to upgrade the tent into a permanent building. They built a very nice temple in the same design as the tabernacle, except twice as large, and instead of tent materials, they used great big stone blocks for the structure and wall-to-wall cedar for the interior. When the people dedicated the temple, the glory of the Lord filled it with fire and smoke so thick that no one was able to go into it for a while. There was God in plain view where everyone could see him. It didn't take long, however, for the people to fall in love with the building and forget about God, who was dwelling in there. It got to be you couldn't say anything to the people about repentance and forgiveness without them throwing a temper tantrum and pointing to the temple. "See, we have a nice church building, the nicest there ever was, the nicest you ever saw." And they were right. They did have a very nice church building, but God thought it would be a good idea to knock it down, to get our attention, to get our minds set on repentance and forgiveness. So he whistled for the Babylonians, who were all too glad to blow the temple up, burn it, put it out, and burn it again. Oh, and in the process, they killed or carried off most of God's people, according to his holy will. They repented. When God sent a few of them back 70 years later, it was almost as if the rubble were still smoking. God sent prophets with them to crack the whip, get that temple rebuilt. Remember how the glory of God filled the tabernacle. Remember how the glory of God filled Solomon's temple. We want that again, see? So they worked through all kinds of hardship to get the temple rebuilt, and they were real proud because they'd done real good. When the people dedicated the rebuilt temple, nothing happened. No smoke, no fire. God did not fill his temple with his glory. It was an empty temple. Or maybe it was a pregnant temple. There was Jesus in plain view, where everyone could see him pointing to this magnificent second temple, which he was now filling, but not with a glorious presence. Instead, he came in humility, taking on the frailty of human flesh as a man, as the Son of Man. He came to his temple in humility, filling it up with teaching and with a warning. See these great buildings? There will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. It didn't take too long either. Not even a week later, the people who loved that big church building had Jesus arrested, falsely accused, beaten, stripped, and crucified in plain view, where everyone could see. And brother will deliver over brother to death. Labor pains cannot be ignored for very long. Nation has risen against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There have been earthquakes in various places. There are famines, even now. Yet Jesus calls these things the beginning of labor. I wonder how much longer labor is going to continue before the baby is delivered. We don't know. But we do know that the labor pains started when they nailed Jesus to a cross and the sun refused to shine on the crucifixion of the Son of God, who was now in the hour of his glory, dying the death of a curse in order to take the curse away from us. Even so, even with this glorious God delivering us from the curse, they hate us, just like they hated him, and for the same reason. We point at all these big buildings, these monuments to man's greatness. Churches, courthouses, skyscrapers, banks, and we say, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. My friends, the bride of Christ is in labor. These are not Braxton Hicks contractions. Stay on your guard, and whatever you do, do not go back to sleep. The one who endures to the end will be saved.